What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Hope you're doing well. In this video, we are going to be solving the final problem in our exercises module and ultimately wrapping up this fundamentals course before we move on to the app development fundamentals. So this is exciting. Let's go ahead and talk about the problem here, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to solve it, and then we're going to hop into the code. So we are going to be creating a shopping cart here. And the idea behind it is we want to be able to add and remove products to and from our cart. We want to be able to apply individual discounts to items, and we can apply both dollar and percentage discounts. And then we are going to want to be able to get the total cost of all of our products and then print out a receipt. So this is very similar to functionality you would see on any sort of app or website that has a shopping cart as a part of it. Something like Amazon or any online shopping website is going to have functionality very similar to this. And in terms of how we're going to solve this, guys, I have a visual breakdown of how we want to structure our data, but it's going to be very, very similar to our guest list problem, where we have an individual item and a list, another structure that is going to contain a list of those individual items. Before it was guests and a guest list. Now it's going to be a product and shopping cart. So before we hop into the code, let's go ahead and see what this is going to look like in a visual diagram, so we can figure out how we want to model our data and structure our solution to the problem here. So we are going to be creating like a product data structure, and this is just going to be pretty simple. It's just going to have a price and a name, like MacBook Pro, $1,300, right? And then what we want to do from there is we want to create another data structure that is going to contain a list of these products. So that's going to look like this. We're going to have a cart data structure, and it's going to be, a shopping cart that contains a list of all of those individual products. So let's go ahead and hop into Xcode now, guys, now that we have a sort of breakdown of how we want to structure our data, and then we can start diving into each individual line item and figuring out how to solve that. So let's scroll down to problem 4. We don't have a problem 5, so I'm going to delete that. And I want you guys to actually pause the video and see if you can figure out how to structure this data. Very similar to what we did with our guest list and guest structures. See if you can do that for our product and shopping cart structures. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and see if we can model out these data structures. So we're going to create a struct for our product, and then we're also going to create a struct for our cart, okay? So this should be similar to what you have if you tried this out on your own. And if you guys remember, our product is going to have 2 properties. It's going to have a name and a price. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say let name, and that's going to be a string, obviously. And then we're going to create a price, which is going to be a variable, and it's also going to be a double data type. So the reason this is a variable, guys, if you think about this, we want our price to be able to change. We might apply discounts to products later on, right? So we definitely want that price to be mutable or changeable. And we definitely want it to be a double so that we can have decimal points on our prices, right? Something could be $5.99, so that we definitely don't want to just make this integer values, right? We definitely want to make this a double data type here. And then our cart should be pretty straightforward as well. It's very similar to our previous problem. We just want our cart to have a list of products. So we can go here and, we could call it items if we want. You could call it products if you want. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be an array of products, and it is very important that we make this a variable as well, because we are going to be modifying this list. We're going to be adding things to it, removing things from it, applying discounts to items inside of that list, so on and so forth. So this is sort of how you should have structured your data, right? So now that we've done that, we can proceed with how we want to solve each individual line item for this problem. But it is very important to, like I said before, figure out how you want to structure your data and sort of model that out, so that it makes solving the rest of the problem very easy, right? So we have a really good foundation here with our data structures. So now we can move on to the individual line items for solving this problem. So the first thing we want to be able to do is add items to our cart and remove items from our cart. So we want to create 2 functions to help us do that, right? One for adding an item and one for removing an item. But we should also think about where we want to place those functions. So if you guys are thinking about this in the right way, you would realize that we should place that on the shopping cart structure, right? Not the product structure. because ultimately we are going to be adding products or removing products to this list here. So we only have access to this list inside of our shopping cart struct. So if we want to add things to it or remove things from it, we have to be within this data structure. So let's go ahead and create two functions here. We're going to say func add item, and it's going to be a product. Func remove item, and it's also going to be a product. Okay, so the first one should be pretty simple, but there is something a little bit tricky attached to it that we're going to talk about in just a second. But it's pretty simple, guys. We just want to take this item that we're passing in and then append it to this this array here. So we're going to say items dot append product. So this little tricky thing I'm talking about is going to show up right here. So you guys notice that we get an error. It says cannot use mutating member on immutable value. Self is immutable. What in the heck does that mean? So with structs, guys, you can't modify things in that struct directly unless you add this mutating keyword to your function. So basically, structs are treated as a certain type of data structure that you can't modify or mutate within the struct itself. So basically, that's what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to modify this items property from within our data structure with this function. So if you want to be able to do that, you have to add this mutating keyword there. Something else that we're going to talk about in our fundamentals part 2 course after we do the fundamentals of app development part 1 is the difference between structs and classes. So another way to create a data structure is to make it a class, and classes are treated differently where you can directly modify them without using this mutating keyword. But we're going to talk about that in a separate course, right? I want to keep things as simple as I can for you guys because a lot of this coding stuff can obviously be really overwhelming. So just know that if you want to change anything within your struct from like a function like this, you need to make it mutating. And we need to do the same thing for our remove item, mutating func remove item. So let's think about how we want to remove our item from a shopping cart, guys. Well, basically, we're going to pass in some product that we want to remove, and we have to go through and search this items array and see if we can find it and then delete it. So let's go ahead and figure out how to do that. I'm going to show you guys 2 different ways of doing it. The second one being much more concise and much cleaner, but I do want to show you the first way because the concepts are the same. Swift just has a nicer way of letting us do this. So we're going to use a for loop here, right? We want to be able to loop through all of our items and search for the one that we pass in here that we want to remove and then remove it from the array. So I'm going to say for I in 0 up to items.count. And this is going to start my for loop, but you guys notice that we're using the index here. And this will come into play in a little bit. Then we want to say, hey, if the product name is equal to the one we're searching for, then we know we found the guy that we want to remove. So let's first off say let product equal items I. So this will give us access to the product that we're looking at in the array. Let's call this item actually, so we don't confuse these two things. And then we need to say if item dot name equals product dot name. Let's do and item dot price equals product dot price. Then we're going to say self dot items dot remove at I. So this is where this index property comes in, guys. So some of you might have tried to do it this way for product or for item in items. And then you can have this logic in there as well, right? If item.name is equal to, let's delete that really quick. This checks if the things are equal, right? The thing we pass in that we're trying to remove, is it equal to the item that we're looking at and that particular iteration of the loop? Well, then what do you do, right? Ultimately, you have to say remove at and then give it an index. Well, here we don't have access to an index. We're just going from item to item. So that's where this index property comes in. We are looping through a range of indices here, and that way we can access the item that we want in this array through that index property when we find the correct thing. So that is pretty important to understand there. But anyway, that's our remove item guy. Next up, we are going to want to be able to, let's do this guy, get total cost, and then we'll do discounts, and then we'll do print receipt. So let's write another function here to just get the sum of all of our products. So we want to say func get total, and this is going to return a double. And once again, guys, this should be placed on our shopping cart data structure, because this we ultimately need to loop through this items array and sum up all of the values in there. And we have done something similar to that already in one of our problems, where we let's see, this guy up here, where we computed the sum and computed the max and all that stuff. It's going to be the exact same concept, right? So we're going to create a variable to keep track of our sum. So we're going to say like var result equals 0.0. So our compiler knows that this is a double because we ultimately need to return a double. Then we're going to say for item in items. And here we don't really need access to the index or anything, right? We don't need to modify anything in our data structure here. So we don't need an index that we're looking at. We can just look at each item and add the price to this result guy. So we can say result plus equals item dot price, return result. And that's it for our get total function, right? So if you guys remember, this keeps track of the sum as we go. And then at each point in the loop, we just add the item's price to that guy. And let's say the first item was $5 on the first after the first iteration, result would be 5. Let's say the next item is $7, then it would become 5 plus 7 equals 12 to ultimately get us a total of $12. So that's getting our total. Next up, guys, let's see if we can figure out how to apply a discount to individual items. So this one gets a little bit more tricky, right? Because we have to figure out where we want to place this function. So the reason I said we want to apply that to individual items was to give you guys sort of a hint there, where it's like, okay, where do we want to place this discount function? Well, if it were me, I would put it on the product structure, because a discount is something that's going to be applied to an individual product, right? So we can say func apply cash discount and func apply percentage discount. Okay, so what we are going to do with these functions, guys, is when we have individual products, we'll then be able to say, hey, product1 dot apply cash discount. And we obviously need to pass in some sort of amount here, double, and then double. And we can, let's call this like maybe percentage for the percentage discount. Cool. All right, so now let's figure out how we want to do this. So basically, we're going to look at this price and we're going to modify it with this amount here. So we're going to say self.price minus equals amount. And because we are modifying this price, guys, we also need to make this a mutating function. And once again, the reason for that is because this function is trying to modify a property on the struct, so it needs to be mutating. And then here, make that a mutating function as well. Let's apply this percentage discount. So we're going to say price, let's see, if we apply a 20% discount to something that's $10, right? We want the price to be $8. So let's just figure out the math here. So it would be times equals 1 minus the amount. So percentage. So this equates to 10 times 0.8 equals $8, right? So that's a little tricky with the math, but I'm sure if you guys think about it, it'll make sense. Basically, if you want to apply a 20% discount, the final price would be 80% of the original cost, right? So that's 1 minus the percentage right there. Okay, so that looks good. Now we can apply individual discounts to our products. Last thing we need to do, guys, is be able to print a receipt about all of this stuff. And then we're gonna, write up or do an example where we create some products and add them to a shopping cart and test out all these functions. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's write another function here. And this one is gonna go on our shopping cart because we need to look at all of the items and print a receipt about all of those items. So let's say func print receipt. And this is going to be pretty simple. It's just going to say print the total cost of your items is get total. And let's put a $sign in front of that maybe. And we could maybe modify this a little bit more later on once we apply some discounts and stuff. But what I want us to do now is I'm going to pause the video and just go and create a couple products, add those products and use those products to create a shopping cart. And that way we'll be able to test out all of these functions and see if this is working as expected. All right, guys, so I just created a couple products here. I made them variables so that we can mutate them if we want by applying discounts and stuff, and then created our cart, also a variable, so we can mutate that list of items. And then, so this is the starting point of the cart. It has 3 items in it. Then I created another item, and applied a cash discount to it just to test that out. And then we added that new item, P4, and then we're going to say cart.print receipt, and let's just see what we get. And we see that, that's probably right. I'm sure we could check the math and, that would be our accurate total there. What I want us to do now, guys, is maybe try to remove an item from our cart, and we're actually going to get a crash here. So let's talk about why. So we're going to say cart.remove item, and let's say P3 or something like that. And this function is going to run the remove item guy, and it's going to start looping through our list of products. It's going to try to find the right one, and then it will ultimately remove it. And, we can then say cart.print receipt again, see if it's updated correctly. But you guys notice we got this index out of range error. So this is an interesting problem. And the reason that happens, guys, is when you start your for loop, it's expecting to go through the full range of the array. So if there's 4 items, the for loop's going to run 4 times. But if you remove an item in the middle of the for loop, right, then it's going to change the amount of items in the array, and your for loop's going to go, oh, hey, dude, I thought you wanted me to loop 4 times. That was the original size of the array. Now you've removed something and you sort of switched up on me. So what you need to do is figure out which item you want to remove. Then you're just going to say return to stop the for loop right there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run this again. And you guys are going to notice that everything is fine. So now that we removed an item that costed, what was it, $900 basically, we see that our total has updated here. And what I want us to do to really polish this problem off, guys, is just go ahead and add some functionality to our receipt to maybe show the user a detailed breakdown of everything they just bought and the cost of each item, and then display the total. So let's see if we can print something like, item 1 is MacBook Pro, and it was, $12.99.99. And then do that for each item, and then ultimately print the total at the end. So let's go ahead and write a for loop, and let's think about how we want to do this. So we notice that we need, the number of the item that we're purchasing. So we're going to need to use our index guy in our for loop. So we're going to say for I in 0 up to items dot count. Then we're going to say let product equal items I. So that gives us access to the product that we need. Then we're going to say print item, and we're going to say I plus 1 here, because we don't want to start counting at 0. We don't want to say item 0 is, item 1 is. We want to just start at 1. So we're just going to add 1 to I, and then we're going to say product.name, a couple dashes, $, product.price. Cool, so that's gonna print that out. And then let's maybe print out like a divider. And maybe print like total. And then we could just print out get total. So now let's run this guy. So item 1 is a MacBook Pro. Item 2 is AirPods Pro. That was $299.99. We see the iPad is $500, and that has our updated discount, right? Because the original price was $600, and then we applied a discount to it. And then we get our total of $29.98. And then, it does the same thing here. So this is when we had all of the items in our cart, and that was the total. But then we removed one, as we saw here with remove item, and it updated our cart to only have 3 items and the correct price. So I think that's awesome. And I think that's a good stopping point there, guys. And this, once again, just gives you an idea of, some of the real world problems you're going to be solving when you start building apps. This is really the foundation of what you need to be able to solve these problems. All of honestly, the UI and all that stuff, like building out like screens and user interfaces, that's the easy part of coding. This is the hard part. And the reason I see a lot of people fail is they jump into the easy and the fun stuff first, and they skip over the fundamentals. So that when they actually try to start building complex apps or apps that have any real sort of functionality, it's not just something that looks pretty with a bunch of pretty colors on the screen. This is where they get hung up, and this is where they completely fail. They get frustrated, then they basically quit coding, or they have to go back and relearn all of this stuff anyway. So you guys have gotten off to a really good start here with all of these fundamentals. I keep saying, if it's confusing, don't worry. We're going to get a lot more practice with this exact type of stuff once we start building real life apps. That's where all of this stuff really starts to come together, guys. When you can start building out a mobile application that has a user interface that the user can interact with by like clicking buttons and stuff. And then when they click that button, it will execute some of this functionality. So you'll be able to see all of this come together full circle. It might be hard to visualize it right now because we haven't actually, built out an application to attach this stuff to. It's all just code on a screen. But once we start actually building apps, it's all going to come together a lot more. But like I said, we needed to get the fundamentals out of the way so that we can succeed as app developers and programmers, because this is the real problem solving that you're going to have to do as an app developer or programmer. For the next step in this iOS development bootcamp, guys, you're going to want to head over to my website at stephancodes.com and go to the courses section, and you can enroll in the SwiftUI bootcamp. We will have a free version of this being published on the YouTube channel as well, so you can get started for free as always. But the full pro version of this course is going to be available on the website at stephancodes.com, and it's this SwiftUI bootcamp here. And this is going to teach us all of the fundamentals of app development and put all of the techniques and tools we just learned into practice when we start building mobile applications, guys. And as you guys can see, we have a ton of other incredible courses here. We just launched this SwiftUI Airbnb clone. We have TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and a chat app, Uber, and so much more is on the way. And if you guys want access to all of this stuff, you can get unlimited access by becoming a member here with us at App Stuff for less than a coffee a day. So guys, for this monthly price, you can become a member and get access to all of those pro courses. That is unlimited access to the pro courses, as well as all of these amazing app templates. And these work straight out of the box, guys. So these are fully ready-made source code projects for things like Instagram, Airbnb, and TikTok and all that you guys would also get access to by becoming a member. So guys, make sure you check us out at stephancodes.com. Thanks so much for sticking with us throughout this entire tutorial. Hope you guys learned a lot, and we hope to see you in the next phase of this with the app development bootcamp, guys. So get excited for that. We'll see you there. Peace.